While the colonists of Jamestown were starting their own government, the Pilgrims were working out plans for coming to America. The Pilgrims were a group of people who had broken away or separated themselves from the Church of England, which was the religion to which most English people, including the Jamestown colonists, belonged. That was why, 400 years ago, the Pilgrims were called separatists. What made them so different from most other English people was that they wanted to have a simple religion of their own. They wanted their services to be as plain as possible. They didn't want stained glass windows or religious statues in their churches. And they wanted everyone to follow strict rules. When the Pilgrims still lived in England, they began to have services in private homes such as the one seen here. But then their new ruler, King James I, forbid all private religious services. That was why many pilgrims had to leave the peaceful countryside and small villages where they had lived all their lives and try to find religious freedom in other lands. At first, the Pilgrims moved to Holland, but after a few years, some of them decided to start a colony in America. By late in the summer of 1620, a ship called the Mayflower was just about ready to take the colonists across the ocean. The ship was being loaded with things that would be needed for the new colony and for the voyage, such things as furniture, plates, jugs, extra shoes, and many barrels filled with water, beer, and food were taken aboard for the voyage. Beds were prepared so the passengers would have places to sleep, and a small boat like this one was taken apart and stored inside the ship so it could be used later on for exploring in shallow waters. Finally, everything was ready, and in September of 1620, 102 passengers found their places below the main deck, and the Mayflower set sail for America. As it turned out, less than one half of the future colonists on the Mayflower were pilgrims. All the rest were members of the Church of England. At first, the Mayflower sailed along smoothly, but as time passed, it grew stormy crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and with so many people jammed into such a small space, everyone was pretty miserable. The voyage took over 2 months, and because the ship was blown off course, it sailed further north than expected. When the colonists finally saw land, they discovered that they were just off of Cape Cod in New England, and not in Virginia, where they had planned to go. At that time, New England had no laws, so before anyone went ashore, 41 men on the ship elected a governor and signed a paper we now call the Mayflower Compact. The Mayflower Compact said that they agreed to make and obey all just and equal laws that would be in the overall best interest of their new colony, and not favor one religious group over another. This turned out to be a very important event because it was the beginning of democracy in America. Most of us have probably heard that the Pilgrims landed here at Plymouth Rock, but no one knows for sure if this really happened. We do know that while they were anchored in Cape Cod Bay, the colonists put together the boat that had been stored on the Mayflower, and they started to search for a place to settle. After a while, they decided to build their new colony on a wooded hillside, in a place that Captain John Smith had named Plymouth when he explored New England a few years earlier. Late in December of 1620, the colonists started building. During that time, they stayed on the Mayflower, even though it was quite cold and damp. By the time winter ended, half of them had died due to poor living conditions and disease. But through a lot of hard work, those who survived were soon able to create a successful community. The arrival of more people from England caused the Plymouth colony to grow, so that by 1627, a small town of over 150 people now stood, where only 7 years before there had been mostly forest. In America, the Plymouth colonists hoped to find more independence and better lives than those they had known in England. At first, many colonists thought they could improve their lives by becoming fishermen, but they soon discovered they couldn't make a living at fishing alone. Even at that, a lot of what they ate came from the sea, and the colony even managed to ship some extra fish back to England. The people of Plymouth had to catch or grow everything they ate. That was why a large part of each day was either spent working in the fields and pastures, taking care of animals, or gathering and preparing food. At Plymouth, the Native Americans had taught them how to grow corn, and that was their best crop. But the colonists also raised all kinds of vegetables in their gardens. They depended on their cattle for both milk and meat. They raised pigs, goats, chickens, and sheep. And in the nearby forests, they gathered berries, trapped for furs, and hunted for wild game. America's huge forests provided the Plymouth colony with so much timber that there was enough extra to send back to England. Like Jamestown, the houses of Plymouth were small and cozy. Whole families slept, cooked, and ate in just one room. And also like Jamestown, Plymouth was protected by tall walls of sharpened logs and was guarded by a fort as well. In the top part of the fort, cannons stood ready to defend the colony from attack, while downstairs was a room where the colony's meetings and religious services were held. On Sundays, no one was allowed to work, and everybody came here to listen to sermons that could be many hours long. Except for Sundays, Plymouth was quite a busy place where the colonists did all the ordinary everyday things they needed to do to stay alive and well. Whether it was carrying lumber to repair a building, raking out a pen, digging post holes for fences, working in the fields, raising the children, or keeping the house neat and tidy. And by doing simple tasks like these day after day, the people of Plymouth slowly created a colony where they not only had religious freedom, but where they were able to lead lives that were much better than those they had known in England.